Hello, everybody. We try again. We just had a bit of a false start there. Welcome to White Line Fever Live. As I also said last time, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. Now, our guest this week, guy we've been trying to get on the show for quite a while. It's Omar Elrayes, who is a data analyst, tech guy, a modeler of civilizations, now working at the RFL. Welcome, Omar.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me, Steve. It's been a while getting here, but I'm really glad to be.
Mate, tell us about the T-shirt. What's the story there?
So I thought I'd get some cool T-shirts and stuff like that. I really like the odd type of rugby league T-shirt, the one that only a rugby league fan would understand the joke behind. A couple of weeks ago, I thought to myself, well, grand finals coming up. I'm going to be watching it in isolation. I want to try to make it a little bit special. So I ordered this How Good Rugby League shirt in memory of the 2020 season. So loving it. Really thought it was a good shirt to wear for the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I've got to learn a bit of marketing. I've got to start sort of wearing stuff that I'm selling. I see that's what the people on YouTube do. Now, Omar, some of the viewers and listeners who would have really appreciated that conversation about something they can't see, the listeners, but be curious about your background and how, you're in, I'll tell everyone, I don't know if I did, you're in Leeds and you work at the RFL at the moment. You don't sound like someone who was born in this country or was destined to work at the RFL. So where does the journey start for you and the sport of rugby league?
Yeah, so it's, thank you very much for the introduction, and sorry I couldn't get onto the introduction last time. My journey in rugby league, I've been a rugby league man from quite a young age, really enjoyed it, growing up and so on and so forth. Didn't come from a big rugby league family or anyone that even watched rugby league for that matter. I went to school in the St. George area, actually Kingsgrove High School, which is, plenty of good rugby league people and players and coaches have come through that school. Played locally at Renowned United and the Kingsgrove Colts as as I grew up, so on and so forth, attending different games, attending, different events. One of the biggest interests for me particularly is the international game. I've got a real interest in the international game personally. But my club team, my NRL team, is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. So been a member there since as soon as I could pay the bills. But I've been, involved in a few different clubs and a few different NRL clubs. Never had the chance to work for the Bulldogs myself, but I've had the chance to, work against them in different areas.
So what was your first job in rugby league? I don't think I can do anything about that big bit of glare in the background. Apologies, everyone. What is, except lean this way so you can't see. What was your first job in rugby league, Omar?
So first job in rugby league, so I went to Kingsgrove High School, as I mentioned there. While I was at school, there was a teacher there who's quite, popular in the rugby league community. Shane Millard, God rest his soul, passed away a few years ago. He was my high school teacher as well as a rugby league coach. And he kind of just said to me, hey, mate, I know you're not doing fantastic academically. Why don't you come and give me a hand on the weekend, just, filling up water bottles, carrying gear, so on and so forth. At the time, he was the assistant coach at the North Sydney Bears SG ball team. So went over there, and every Saturday I would go fill up the water bottles and so on and so forth. And I was still at school. Did that. So just did that, do odd jobs. The following year, I finished high school, and I went to university. I went to the Australian College of Physical Education. At the time, Shane had got promoted from the assistant role to the head coach role at the SG North Sydney Bears team. He said, when you come, be my yellow shirt, so and so forth, get around the lads. Went there, was working as a trainer for a few years. For about 2 years, I was working as a trainer, just doing odd jobs while I was going to university. Went and got all my special certificates, whether that be, the medic ones and the massage, first aid, so on and so forth. When I got my rugby league coaching accreditation, so on and so forth. As the years progressed, ended up after 4.5 years there, ended up finishing up there as the head trainer for the academy squad. So they're both the Harold Matt and SG Ball. for that North Sydney Bears for about 4.5, 5 years, which was really, really fun working alongside, Shane at the time, and Greg Florimel was there, and really, really, really good time at North Sydney Bears. That's where it all kicked off at North Sydney, and then moved into some other roles post that.
Right. So, what was your first sort of big NRL post there, Omar? Who did you work with?
First NRL, I guess before I got an NRL post, I should say, I was actually involved in the international game before I got my first NRL post particularly. At the time, Shane's son, Daryl Millard, was playing for the Fiji Rugby League, and I'd actually come through grade with the likes of like Apasai Coruscant and Kane Evans and so forth, and they were at the time playing for Fiji. So we kind of had a bit of a mutual, understanding there. We both, they knew I was trying to get a way into the rugby league, and they were playing there. They said, well, why don't you come run water for us for the Fiji team? Rick Stone was the head coach at the time. He liked my stuff and told me, come on board. You're our medic trainer, and ended up becoming the orange shirt for Fiji for a couple of years, which was absolutely mind-blowing, awesome. Everything from playing, in fantastic, brilliant stadiums in Sydney to playing in the jungle of Fiji. It was honestly a rugby league experience I wouldn't trade in for the world. But so I was there for a few years. Once I got a bit of international experience, started getting some attraction from some of the NRL clubs. At the time, I was still at university, and the NRL were trying to encourage some universities that come into what they call the Business Academy. I got headhunted by the NRL to come join their Business Academy. So I was doing an internship with the NRL, but I was based out at Cronulla Sharks. That was in the 2015 year. So I did an internship with the NRL at the Cronulla Sharks through 2015. In the 2015, Cronulla Sharks offered me a full-time role working in their community department. So that was my first big break into an NRL team at the end of the 2015 year.
Right, and what was it like? Who were you dealing with at Cronulla at the time on a daily basis, and what was your role? And how does the sort of data analysis come into your role and come into what you've ended up doing in the game?
Yeah. So the data stuff, actually, I've never done, particularly in rugby league. A lot of the data and analytical stuff I've done closer to my career outside rugby league, more into my financial background. But when I was at the Cronulla Sharks, particularly, I was working in the community department. So I was working over a number of areas. That'd be the junior league on the weekend. The women's rugby league was just kicking off, just starting women's rugby league. We started a touch academy, a Cronulla Sharks touch academy. And the other big area we were working in was special populations. So we were trying to promote disability rugby league, trying to promote a lot of multicultural rugby league, a lot of development stuff, trying to get into the community, into hospitals, into working with the Defence Force, with the police, so on and so forth, which was really cool. I must have picked a really good year because everyone wanted to be part of the Cronulla Sharks in the 2016 year. We had a brilliant year, working in and around. I was doing a lot of work with, at the time, Ben Ross, now that the Cronulla Sharks at the time was working at the Men of League. So I was doing a lot of work with the Men in League and Ben Ross. Did a bit of work with Stuart Raper, who was also, involved with the New South Wales refereeing at the time. It was a really, really cool experience, really enjoyable, a really fun year, and probably one of the bucket list items being part of an NRL club, getting the chocolates at the end of at the beginning of October.
You're a bit early for you to be filling things on your bucket list. People would imagine that if you work at an NRL club, there's all sorts of juicy gossip every day, all sorts of secrets that only you know because you work there. Is it actually like that?
I was always told not to kiss and tell.
Well, you're just telling us whether there's anything that you do have to tell if you were going to kiss and tell. You're not actually kissing and telling.
Oh, okay. Well, you can run back through the papers to that 2015 year, 2016 year. There's a few things that happened in those years, which I'm sure people be happy to forget about.
I'd be happy to ask you about until you had filled everything on your bucket list, I'm sure. So what was it? Now, this is really interesting. I think for the viewers and listeners, is that you went to the AFL. Was that directly after Cronulla? Because that is like a talk about gossip. That's a peek behind enemy lines for our audience.
Well, yeah, it is definitely. I jumped to, some people would say, the dark side, but I actually got to the AFL in a really roundabout way. At the time, after I finished at Cronulla, one of the guys I worked with, he was working with the Philippines Rugby League, and they were trying to establish the inaugural competition in Asia. So I went on board and I became one of the operations managers, and we started the inaugural Philippines National Rugby League, which was really awesome when I spent some time over there, working there, starting a rugby league competition. It's still running to date, which is really good. While I was there, I did that role for a few months. I'd come back to Australia, and one of the guys I was studying with when I was at Norths, he was got promoted and got the head trainer position at the GWS Giants at the AFL. And he said to me, "Hey mate, I know you've left Cronulla and so forth. I'm looking for someone part-time just to kind of do a lot of the strapping work, a lot of the rehab stuff, and help out the physios during the week, and then on the weekend just to run water and do some soft tissue therapy for the players pre and post game." I said to him, "Sure." So I went over to the Giants. I worked with the Giants for a year doing a contract there with their top squad. It was one of the most enjoyable years in the sense that I really learned a lot about what it meant to get an elite team onto the pitch. For a lot of years, I've been doing, from my arm's length, been working with rugby league teams, but I'd never seen what it would look like in another environment. The AFL, particularly, are very scientific in their methodology, how they go about their sport. There was a really, really good insight into the sports science of elite sport, and then taking that back to a rugby league sense.
So your next move, was that to come over here, or was there something else?
Yes. So my next move, so I was at GWS Giants for up until the end of 2018. For the first, and then after that, I decided in 2019, I graduated university in March. I packed up everything I had, sold my car, sold my motorbike, left my job, and took a backpack and took a one-way ticket to London, trying to make the world my oyster.
Now we'll get into a few more philosophical things now, and we've covered the story now. When I first met you, and talking to other people about you, the thing was that you're good at mapping out structures and pathways and junior development, and you kind of know the data and the likelihood of a certain system working and a certain system falling over. And on social media, rugby league fans love to talk about these things. They love to argue about, the Wolfpack have never had a Canadian in the team, and it would take 20 years to produce one first grader. And, the Roosters have no juniors, and, it's better for Melbourne to bring players in from Queensland at a certain age than to try to grow them themselves in Victoria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wonder, from what you've learned from your various roles there, what are some of those misconceptions? What's the truth of growing a club up from grassroots, and what is the value of doing it alongside just buying, importing players from elsewhere? What are the things that national federations do wrong when they're trying to start the game? What about the fight between the heritage players and the locals, and what's the answer to that, in a national team program? You must have some good insights into those issues.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the question. It's it's a really there's a lot of pipelines through and around that question, and I've had the opportunity to work in a number of different development systems, being the South Sydney system, which was a South Sydney junior system. However, I had one NRL squad and two junior systems, being North Sydney Bears and South Sydney. Also worked in the pathway system at Cronulla, which was a very single-minded system, and then also had the opportunity to go and work with the Sydney Swans at one point, working in their academy, which was vastly different as well, because it was Now, to answer your question about, either Toronto, for example, get 20 years to get a superstar player from that place. The question I always put forward to people is, particularly either Melbourne Storm, for example, and the Roosters, for example. It's all well and good to have junior come through your system, and it's always a good love story. But particularly in elite sport, the business is about winning. It's not about making people feel good. So it's always good to have a nice story about a junior coming through the system. But when you get to that elite level, it's all about buying wins and buying people that fit the mold that you need to achieve that process. So there's no difference, I believe, between a stockbroking business or a construction company or a rugby league team, for that matter. In the sense, you're buying the right trades for the right jobs. So the way I like to look at it is you got to build with all the right ingredients to make that work. Whether that be a list of heritage players and a few younger players, having all the Penrith system that worked this year with a whole bunch of development players that come through together, or buying a few real good strong leaders like the Melbourne Storm do have their strong top tier, and a few of the lower tier players. There's no one structure that fits all, but the one key thing that I believe that overrides any purchasing of players or purchasing of staff, for that matter, is you have to have a communal and collaborative approach to everything. Nothing works in isolation. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. It's all well and good to have all the best players, but if you have a lot of all the best players and none of them gel together, or none of them fix a problem in a collaborative manner, there's always going to be clash. And it's when something starts to clash, there's always divots. So it's I find, particularly with a junior system, bringing it in from a younger age through to the top, if everyone's working to the same stream, or everyone has the same understanding of what's expected of them, I'm not talking game plan or what's being done on the field. I'm talking about what it means. You're, for example, a young player, their diet on the weekend. For a young, an older person, maybe, still maintaining that politeness and that manner, then removing that ego or that arrogance in and around. Because people are incredible, and players that are even more incredible in their physique, in their physical attributes. If they all believe in the one system and all working together, it's always easier to work. It's always easier to work to a particular goal. So to answer your question in regards to Toronto or the Melbourne Storm or the Roosters, the key point, I guess, is you got to buy the right ingredients to fit together that that make the larger project easier to work with.
So you got over here and you got yourself a job at the RFL. Can you tell us a little bit about that role that you have there, and then how the the COVID-19 crisis has impacted on everyone at the RFL and yourself as well in a new job?
Yeah, definitely. So I've come over to Leeds. I came here in March. COVID hit hard midway through March, so I was at the office in Red Hall for 8 days before we went into complete lockdown. So it's been a bit difficult trying to do my role there, not knowing a lot of the staff, not knowing a lot of the environment, and particularly those who follow the English and UK Rugby League. There's been a lot of changing of schedules and cancellation of games, and we had a test series coming against Australia in the year that's no longer available. It's been cancelled at the moment, which was, a really, really exciting prospect for the European market. My role particularly, I work in the customer space. So my role currently is in around ticketing, the Our League app, and registrations of the weekend, the registration system of the weekend league. However, at the moment, with the whole lockdown, there's not a lot of weekend rugby league going. With the whole lockdown and coronavirus, there's not a lot of people buying tickets into games. The big area, and also the other big area, is refunding a lot of those people and rearranging tickets for those people. So that's the project I've been working on for the last few weeks and a few months, about how we can then reimburse those customers who've purchased tickets and how we can move them to seats for the following year, the 2021 season.
We've just seen our league in the news in the last 24 hours with the Catalans fans complaining that they wouldn't be able to watch this week's sudden death final, and then subsequently that's been fixed just this morning. So is our league, for people who don't really understand what that is, it's an app that the RFL have, which has a lot of functionality, but one of the things it has is that it shows games. So when there's games are behind closed doors this year, there was an opportunity for season ticket holders to get a code and they could watch the games without having to buy a Sky subscription, basically. However, it got to the finals and apparently the rules were different and the arrangement with Sky was different. Can you just talk us through being on the other end of the phone, when people are ringing up saying, why can't I watch my team play? I mean, you've got to have a fair bit of patience there.
Oh, definitely, you've got to have a fair bit of patience. But the word I prefer to use over the patience is a lot of empathy. Because I know for myself, there's nothing that makes me more enjoyable than a rugby league game. I look forward to it. If there's not a day that goes past, I'm not reading a news article, not a weekend that doesn't go past that I'm not watching a game or trying to find, some sort of live rugby league, whether it be, a top level NRL match to watching, the women's State of Origin, which is on the end of the week, through to, an under 16s game that's been streamed on the New South Wales Rugby League website. I love it. So I've got a whole heap of empathy for these people that want to watch the Catalans play or watch, the whole play or even Leeds Rhinos play, any of those teams, It's something that they really want to do and it's something they look forward to the week. So you take what they're saying and you say to them, look, I would be in the same position. I wouldn't be too happy either. Let us put it on our to-do list and I'm here to service you. So I'll make all the right calls and all the right adjustments to see if we can get a win-win arrangement for both for yourself and for us, so we don't have to hear people being disappointed at the rugby league at any point.
Now, I know that, Omar, you're not going to criticise your own employers, so we'll exclude the RFL from this, but what would you like to see as a rugby league fan and as someone who's worked, in two clubs and then an AFL club and now a governing body? What's the one thing you'd like to see the game do better, or the one improvement that you think could be made that perhaps doesn't cost too much money? It's just down to people understanding things better.
Yeah, I'd say there's 2 points that I really like in rugby league. Something I learned when I was at the AFL, one of their biggest mantras is AFL needs to look like AFL, right? So I think rugby league, we sometimes get a bit excited and we try too many new things and we lose the concept and the core of rugby league. Now, I'm not advocating people to get, upset at each other or angry at each other. But my favourite thing about rugby league is just tribalism. And it's my team versus your team, my country versus your country, my area versus your area. And that's something I think we've started to lose. There's no more tribalism in the rugby league game. And I'm talking not only, in a club level, I'm talking even at a national level. Let's promote some of these Pacific Island teams, like the Fijis, the Samoas, the Tongas, the Papua New Guineas. Let's really ramp up that international game, get it to the same level as that of a England versus New Zealand or a New South Wales versus Queensland. Let's get a real festival of rugby league. I think there's a lot of development, a lot of interest in trying to, play with the elite level rugby league club stuff, but we're not putting the same type of effort and emphasis on the international game. Mm-hmm. So that's something I really enjoy about rugby league. Is it's multiculturalism and the tribalism of country to country, area to area. So that's an area I think we could do a lot more in, and we can really capture a new audience in fan wise.
Okay, Omar, it's been a great journey for you so far. What is this all part of a grand plan, or are you just sort of shuffling along, seeing what opportunities present themselves? What's next for you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, just shuffling along, chasing the dream. You know, I'm someone who always, you know, I believe life is for the living, to chase what you want to do. I'm living my dream. I decided as a young kid, I want to be involved in rugby league. I want to be involved in sport. So I've just chased that wherever it is, whether it be in Sydney, the Philippines, through to the Fiji. I'm now in UK in Leeds. So I'm just going to keep enjoying myself, live my life to the fullest, and take the wins when they come, and learn from the losses. But I haven't had any yet. Yes, I'm stuck in a pandemic, but I'm talking to Steve Mascord. We're halfway across the country, and we're still talking rugby league. Doesn't matter whether the sun's up or the sun's down.
That's right, and hopefully there's people watching on about 12 Facebook pages. Okay, it's been a pleasure, Omar. Thanks very much. We've been talking about this for a while, and everyone, don't forget that if you want to support the program, it's patreon.com/White Line Fever. See you next week. Goodbye, Omar.
See you later. Have a good rugby league, guys.